Tonight's going to be a different episode of Hot Garbage. We're going to have with us a World War II veteran, Max, my neighbor that lives next door. He's going to talk about a couple of episodes during the Battle of the Bulge in which he served and his entrance into the field and the European struggle over there, as well as a brief period where he was a POW, along with a period of time where he actually captured German prisoners. So that's going to be in this episode of Hot Garbage, which will be a two-part series with no commercial interruption. Welcome to Hot Garbage. Nick couldn't make it today. He left his phone here, so I haven't been able to get in touch with him. But today we have a special guest, my next door neighbor Max. And Max is going to talk to us about a couple of things he experienced during the World War II, the Battle of the Bulge era. This is Max. Hello, Max.
Okay, I am Max, and I want to tell you a little war story. I'm one of 8 brothers who served our country. And in 1943, I was drafted right out of high school into the Army. I trained in Georgia and then went overseas to England and Ireland. We trained. And I'll tell you a little instance while we were training in England. We went on a hike, and our objectives was through the country to try to find camouflage radio stations, anything, tanks that was camouflaged as we walked along this little country road, see if we could pick them out. So we were walking down this little country road. On either side there was haystacks, cattle, just a farm. And all at once the sergeant said, "Get off the road, get off the road." And we got off the road, and when we did, those haystacks opened up, and the British Spitfires came out of there like Georgia Yellow Jackets.
Those are airplanes.
Using that road as a runway. And we didn't even know that there was an airport nowhere around. They had got a call that the Germans were over the way and they were going up to fight them. Well, after that, later we went to Ireland. While I was in Ireland training, I got to meet General Eisenhower and I saw Patton. But I did not talk to Patton, but I did General Eisenhower. They came over just before D-Day to inspect us. And I guess they figured we weren't quite good enough to be in the first wave. So I'm standing there as the guard of honor for General Ike, and after he had finished his speech, he started out and he came by and he patted me on the shoulder. He said, "Soldier, how's things going?" It just shook me up. I said, "This is pretty good, sir." He said, "Calm down, son. We're going to take care of you." And so I did, settle down, and I wouldn't let my buddies touch me on that shoulder for 2 weeks. You know. So then, June the 6th, D-Day. Never forget it, 1944. Of course, as I said, we were not in the first wave. 3 weeks later, we landed on Utah Beach, which was not too hot at that time. They were still strafing the beaches, but still dead soldiers all along the shoreline. So we fight our way into France, and that's where they organized the 3rd Army. Patton took over the 3rd Army, and we were part of his army. And so we started fighting all the way across France. And I want to tell you a little incident that happened to me back in Normandy. August the 9th, 1944, I was on a patrol with the R&I platoon. I didn't belong to the R&I platoon, but they needed a man, so they took me. We were just outside of the big city of Algiers, France. It was one of the largest cities that had fallen to the American forces. Well, my job at that little French town they put me off was to guide some tanks in a direction of attack. That's all I knew. Well, I was put off there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and no one came by. No army. I did not see a soldier or a jeep or a tank. And it worried me, but I heard firing back behind me. What had happened later, I found that I was in no man's land. They had ambushed our main forces in the back, and they were fighting their way through. So it got dark, and I was standing there talking to the French people. I was eating some of their food. They would bring me some chicken, I believe it was, and they were smoking my cigarettes and eating my candy bars just as fast as they could. Hallelujah, American! And so I looked like a politician. I shook hands with, I bet you, 50 French that night. They wanted to see American. So they came by and they began to shake hands with me. It was dark. We were standing there, and all at once I heard something says, "Bosh! Bosh!" That's German soldiers. Man, they scattered, and all at once, before I could move, I had a machine pistol in my stomach. It was 3 German soldiers. They fired at the French as they ran, but I don't think they hit anybody. And they had that gun in my stomach before I could move. It scared them about as bad as it did me, because they weren't really expecting a soldier there. What I think happened was that they were from the Air Force, the WWII, and they had got shot down, and they didn't know where they were. The way they were armed, I figured that they weren't the infantry soldier, because they had smaller guns.
Pistols.
And so they took me out of that little town just as fast as they could, because they were afraid that the Americans were all around. And really wasn't an American around within 10 miles, best I remember, because it didn't come through. So they carried me in this woods, and I was scared. Yes, I was very scared. And they searched me, and they failed to find a hand grenade on me, which I had in my pocket. And I'm standing there after they had taken my cartridge belt off. They got my gun first, and I began to wonder. After I kind of settled down and wasn't quite as scared, I started talking to this one German soldier who could speak a little English. And I tried to get him to surrender to me. I said, "You're surrounded. There's no way you're going to get out." And he didn't like that. And he beat the stew out of me. He beat me up in the face and told me to shut up. And so I did. And with that hand grenade I was telling you, I thought maybe I ought to pull that pin and just toss it there and run for my life. And then I got to thinking, it might get me too. So I didn't do that. So the Germans went into a little huddle talking. I didn't know what they were saying. And they came back, and this one thing, he says, "Start walking." He rammed his machine pistol in my back. Well, I began to beg, "Please don't shoot," because I knew what was happening, because I heard that old bolt click behind me. And he told me to start walking.